New Orleans and, you know, the crazy things that happen there? Like, is there a reason that and, I mean, obviously with Gettysburg you have battle sites, but why there's so much unrest in some areas?
I think really there are 1,000 different reasons as to why a place would become haunted. Sometimes I've come across cases where during their lifetime they enjoyed being at that location, so when the point of death came, they didn't want to leave. So again, there can be many different reasons. Sometimes there are a lot of murder, sometimes a lot of loss of life in different areas. And of course then, getting right back to it as well, can be places where a lot of people used to worship, which can attract a lot of things as well. So again, many different reasons to why this can happen. We tend to head toward the murder route and the massacre and everything else, but you know, that's just one reason as to why a lot of spirits would remain there and stay behind. Sometimes they've unfinished business. Sometimes they need someone alive to help finish that business before they can move on. Many different reasons.
Rob, is there a vetting process when you first are told about a place? Do you check it? I mean, or are we seeing you guys checking it out for the first time when you send the ghost hunters in?
We vet it off camera. We talk to the location. We talk to eyewitnesses. We want to make sure that where we're sending them to has credible claims. But the first time they get there is the first time they've ever seen it. We shoot nothing. Everything is on what you see on television.
Do you find places are frequently making things up for attention, or?
It occasionally happens.
Yeah.
We've been to places where they've raped the stuff and we've caught them and we put that on TV.
So what are the scariest places you guys have investigated? A place you would absolutely not want to spend the night alone?
Nowhere.
That's not what we want to go spend the night. That's crazy to me.
We'll let the international team take this one. I have to say that there was a place that we investigated. It was in the Philippines, Clark Air Force Base. And down underneath the Air Force Base, there is something really wrong there. I don't know what it is. Dustin and I were literally back to back just before everything started to fire off. I couldn't put my finger on what it was, but it was a place that I said I never want to get back to. I really don't want to investigate that again.
God, all right, so with GH is Fort Mifflin, the isolation casement, no thank you. And the other with GHI, I would say has to be Kronberg Castle, the dungeons. When they say dungeons in Europe, they're not kidding. It's the creepiest place I've ever been in my life. It's just stone and dirt and darkness. And I remember at the end of the night, I went down to pick up equipment for myself, and I didn't like it too much.
Yeah, I mean, I have to probably say Waverly Hills in Kentucky is really impressive. And I mean, I haven't been there with the show, but I've investigated on my own. But I know we're going back there this season, so we're all very excited about that.
Yeah, it's a viewer's choice. They wanted us to go back.
And you can't say no.
You don't say no to the viewers.
We say no to Waverly Hills.
No, no one.
Sort of along those lines, are there any other places you would want to go back to for a follow-up investigation?
No, but we want to go to the White House, so if anybody can get us to the White House to investigate, see me after the show.
Have you heard the White House is haunted?
Oh yeah.
Yes, notoriously.
Notorious by ghosts of old presidents, or?
Abraham
Lincoln.
Really? What about here in Hollywood? There's supposed to be so many ghosts.
Those are just bad pilots.
Now, how do you guys deal with skeptics or people who think that you're somehow rigging or faking your investigations? You must hear it all the time.
You know, I think it just comes with the territory. It's just one of those topics that, you know, people are going to fight you on, which is fine. I'm a skeptic myself, so I know if I was watching at home, it'd be just as hard on whatever it was I was watching, so I'm not there. But my biggest thing has always been, and it's how I was raised, to be as honest as I possibly can. So if you see me freaking out, or you see me, you know, saying I saw something, it is what it is. I don't understand it. Maybe we'll figure it out. Maybe we won't. But I'm not here to fool anybody, and you can't change people's minds. You gotta just kind of let it roll off your back.
Yeah, it's really hard. Like, I think all of us, there's this curve when you first start where you want to answer every single thing you see on the internet where they're attacking you, and eventually you realize that nothing will ever be good enough. And, you know, it's really just about, you know, the team and furthering the field, and just, you know, there's always going to be naysayers, and you just have to kind of let it go and focus on your goal. So.
It seems like I often hear, or it seems like the ghosts or spirits don't seem to be terribly malevolent. Do you believe that most of them are, I don't want to say good ghosts, friendly ghosts, but they don't, you know, they haven't hurt you yet? Or has there been an occasion where you really thought, oh, I have to stop right now, I can't do this?
There was a book that was released on the market not so
yeah.
long ago called The Influence.
Oh.
And it's written by me, by the way. And it talks about a European perspective. A lot of the things back in Europe certainly have a huge age on it. And I find that the older ones tend to be the crankiest. And that can have a problem. I know within that darker side, the darker connotation that you're talking about, within England alone, you have 400 exorcisms that are carried out every year that you just simply don't hear about. Never mind the exorcisms that are carried out all around the world. Even in the Vatican itself, there was a lady presented herself to the last Pope, John Paul II, and during the process of Mass, he tried to exercise what was ever inside her. And you have to remember there are certain protocols that have to be met. It's not just someone who walks off the street and says, I believe I'm possessed. There are protocols that the church will meet and will address before they go through the process of exorcism. Whatever this thing was, laughed and said, even your head of your church can't get rid of me. And it wasn't a success. Even the Pope himself couldn't exercise her. So there is a darker element to it. But for the most part, thankfully, we have escaped most of that. Yeah, I think we have escaped most of it. So I think we're all right for now, anyway.
Yeah, those are very rare. I mean, Kris loves to provoke. And when we investigate together, she's always trying to get me to provoke.
And she's like, oh God, not again.
Because many years ago, I provoked. I had an experience. I learned my lesson, and I won't ever do it again. But I was provoking in a place I probably shouldn't have been, and I felt something like, it felt like something whipped my leg, like this just white hot like heat. And I had this huge like blister burn mark across my leg, and I was bundled up. It was winter. There's no, you know, I felt it happen, and that's the only time anything like that has happened to me. And I won't provoke again.
Yeah, I'm not allowed on the show. If I ever start to get a little nasty, she's like, Adam. I know.
Now, I don't know what happened to this woman who couldn't be exorcised. Is she still possessed, or?
Last I heard.
I mean, you just give up at a certain point. Yeah.
I would imagine we come to that point. We've got a lot of drugs, of course, in the market now that try and sedate the problem, which they do, but they don't fix the problem. I know that the church itself believes that 75% of people who are in asylum shouldn't be there, and those are recent figures that were released from the church itself. So you know, there is another side to it.